No Name resurrects in the dungeon next to Rena as the blue window confirms that the inheritance is complete and analyzes how he died. As Rena wakes up, he tells her they are headed to Ublam, knowing what will happen. No Name repeats the same events as before in the town, with Rena arguing with the shopkeeper, them confronting and following the surprised blacksmith to his forge, and receiving the vial of Grasmere's flame, the flamethrower, and heat-resistant powder. No Name then throws the bag of powder at the blacksmith's face and threatens to test it on him by torching him with the flamethrower, much to the latter's horror. He then points out that the powder only prevents him from feeling the heat, but if he used it, his armor would melt before he noticed, and asks the blacksmith why he would want them dead as well. The blacksmith then says that he knows he is not human due to how he moves in the armor, and thus he would prefer that he die after burning the guards. This enrages Rena, but No Name sees no point in killing the blacksmith and starts to leave, stating that he would have killed the guards anyway, before he stops to notice a new, sturdy two-handed sword. Though the blacksmith protests at his taking it, No Name states that it is the price for attempting to kill them, and leaves. Now armed with the sword and the flamethrower, No Name and Rena reach the ruins of Spider's vault. The girl points out that they should use the flamethrower carefully and merrily starts to enter the dungeon, before No Name, remembering how she died because of him and unwilling to put her in danger, knocks her unconscious and enters the dungeon alone, promising to return soon. No Name burns his way into the dungeon, handling the power of Grasmere's flame with care before being confronted by a perplexed captain and his guards. Upon one of his men's suggestion, the captain tries to fool No Name, claiming that they will escort him to safety, while preparing to throw him a vial of egg yolk a second time. He fails, however, and No Name shatters the vial with his sword, as a surprised captain asks him who he is. The skeleton then states that he promised him an agonizing death, upon which he orders his men to attack. No Name then burns them all as the captain escapes, noting he cannot use the flame for long else he melts again. The captain then strikes him from behind, breaking the flamethrower, pointing out that the Spider Queen is furious at No Name for breaking her eggs before picking the last one. Using it as a hostage, he orders the queen to attack, and though No Name blocks the attack, he is flung across the cavern. He wonders what to do as he blocks the incoming attacks, finally stumbling on a rock and falling to the ground. He then notices the broken flamethrower and darts towards it as the queen strikes and shatters his helmet. The captain rejoices at this before noticing that the queen's leg is now on fire, and turning to face No Name, brandishing his now flaming sword and repeating his promise of the agonizing death. The Spider Queen roars as No Name slices her limbs before finally striking her down in one fell swoop with his flaming sword. As the skeleton stands over the spider's corpse, the captain, shocked by this outcome, tries to strike him down from behind. No Name chops his sword hand off, the blade cauterizing the wound, and once again promises a slow, agonizing death. Frantic, the captain orders his men and the spiders to deal with him before realizing they're all dead. Fleeing, his shirt catches fire from touching a puddle of Grasmere's flame. Distracted by his futile attempts to stop the fire from spreading and fleeing No Name, the captain stumbles backwards and falls off a ledge to his death. No Name comments on this stupid way to die, and thinking it's all over and considering the sword too dangerous to carry, throws it over the ledge as well. As he turns around, however, he is confronted by a badly wounded but still standing Spider Queen. Now disarmed and with his back against the cliff, the skeleton stands still as the queen carefully picks up and embraces her last remaining egg, just before dying and dropping a red jewel. A blue window pops up informing that No Name has defeated the web slinger. As a reward for completing the dungeon, he has boosted his soldier points considerably, as well as initiated the borderline adventure quest and earned a speed boosting skill and a ruby. No Name emerges from the cave with a bag of loot and is confronted by an angry Rena. She angrily yells at him for knocking her out and going in alone, but her face changes drastically when he presents her the bag full of gold, and she promises to become stronger to avoid becoming a hindrance and telling him not to leave her behind again. She then leads him to her guild's branch office. Sometime later, they arrive at an orphanage and Rena is greeted by the children, including her sister, and introduces No Name as the knight who helped her out. The headmaster of the orphanage then greets her and they head inside. The young, well-dressed man and Rena get reacquainted, and the latter introduces No Name. The headmaster then introduces himself as Lime, and after noticing how taciturn he is, suggests that No Name take his armor off. The skeleton refuses and is then shocked as Lime reassures him that he is fine with what's underneath the armor. But the conversation is cut short when a child's screams are heard outside, and Lime states that there are unwelcome guests in the premises, offering to continue later. In the courtyard, two armed men and a woman are trying to take a child by force, accusing her of running away. Lime intercedes and offers to talk things out once they release her. The men explain that they run the orphanage at the nearby village, and the child ran away after being sent to a court who backs the establishment and took a liking to her in order to be his adopted daughter. Lime then points out that she ran away due to mistreatment, but before the men can react, the woman halts them. She tells Lime that if he acts like they didn't see them, then they could just be on their way, but the headmaster refuses. The woman then offers an agreement to profit from the children, demanding he give them the children they want. She is cut short by Lime, who states he doesn't run the orphanage so pigs like them can use children as puppets. Upon which the woman orders the men to attack. Though No Name is concerned, Rena assures him that everything is alright, and that the men are the ones in need of assistance. The woman grins as the men cut Lime down, but is shocked to see that he is made of slime and has engulfed her henchmen. Lamenting how humans become ugly and stupid when they age, Lime consumes the terrified woman next, while a shocked No Name and a smug Rena look from afar. Lime then apologizes and introduces himself properly as Slime, the manager of the T&T Guild's Eastern Branch Office. Standing amidst the clothes and weapons of the dead intruders, Slime introduces himself to No Name as a type of changeling, a fellow non-human trying to live in the human world. No Name is surprised at seeing one of the rare, intelligent slimes before him, and asks him how he will deal with the consequences of what he did. While he comforts the child the intruders wanted to grab, he states that cleaning up that mess poses no problem, much to the skeleton's uneasiness and Rena's satisfaction. Back inside, Slime explains that he runs an orphanage because slimes have no gender nor parent-child relationships, and he finds it interesting that humans look vastly different when they grow up. He states that though slimes can adopt any form, they are merely shells since they are shapeless creatures, and offers to take the form of a skeleton, which No Name politely declines. After the latter asks how he knew he was a skeleton, Slime is revealed to be an excellent appraiser due to being a slime, giving him great leeway within the guild. In appreciation for helping Rena, he offers to appraise anything No Name desires, and the latter gives him the ruby. As Slime appraises the jewel, No Name reasons that Rena was not distrusting of him due to having grown up with slime in the orphanage. Once the appraisal is complete, a blue window pops up stating the use of the ruby as an ingredient for a class change and its perks. And Slime points out that it is quite valuable and suitable after absorbing blood and vital force of humans for a long time. Suddenly, another blue window pops up informing No Name that his assimilation rate has dropped to 88.68%, causing him to shake noticeably and causing Slime to worry. No Name brushes it off, and praises the slime's skill, and prompted by the latter asks if there's a spare sword he can take. Instead, in gratitude for keeping Rena safe, Slime offers to get one from the blacksmith and repair No Name's armor, while also providing him a room to rest for the night, which he accepts gratefully. That night, No Name stares at the ruby thinking about a class change when Rena enters his room and asks if he is stargazing. No Name asks if she shouldn't be spending more time with her sister and sleeping together, to which she replies that she doesn't wish to make her want to stay longer and that one day would come when they could live together. She then approaches No Name and gives him her precious golden pendant, explaining that it was around her neck when she was abandoned at the orphanage. Sweetly, she says that she's giving it to him for the day when he completes his quest and she becomes branch manager, asking him to live with her. They stare at each other in silence. The next day, No Name examines his repaired armor with Slime and admires his new sword, before Rena enters the room and averts her gaze. Later, Slime asks the skeleton about their next destination, and upon the latter's uncertainty, he proposes that No Name join the T&T Guild. As he explains, Rena's rank of trainee limits the quality and quantity of information she can acquire in the guild. But if No Name were to join, he would receive all the benefits granted to official members under Slime's recommendation. Though Slime believes he would be a great member, No Name declines the offer since being tied down to a group is not his style, much to Slime's disappointment. No Name then states that he will continue to get any information he needs from Rena going forward, causing her to blush. He then asks Slime what would be needed for Rena to become an official member, and once the latter explains she can either take requests by the guild or donate gold, he proceeds to offer him the bag of gold obtained from the Spider's Vault. As Slime states that it will be enough, a blue status window pops up updating his progress in the scenario Rena's story, and informing No Name that his assimilation rate has decreased to 88.56%. The skeleton wonders what this means while Slime reads the guild bylaws to Rena. But No Name stops them as the branch manager mentions the obligation to inform on any grave threat to the peace of Amber. Amber is a maritime port as well as the city of engineers, and No Name recalls that soon the city will be the starting point of the 9 Years' War, which will be initiated by the Crown Prince Alton Clemens II between the Empire and the Freedom Alliance. While neutral, the city's anarcho-syndicalist nature will end up annoying the Crown and its efforts to expand the Empire. Being situated between it and the Freedom Alliance, it will become the Empire's first target. No Name then asks Slime why Amber is mentioned in the procedure for promotion, and as the latter informs him that it is the location of the guild's headquarters, the skeleton wonders if he should tell him what he knows. He chose to skirt around the subject, asking if Amber's position as the biggest obstacle for the Empire in a supposed war with the Freedom Alliance would count as a grave threat. Although Slime agrees, he states that a proper response has been prepared should the Empire take any action and refuses to elaborate any further. As Slime congratulates Rena for her promotion, No Name asks as to the requirements for her to become branch manager, much to Slime's amusement, and he insists on prioritizing Rena's promotion since it would be useful to him. Slime ponders on this and informs him of difficult requests that must be dealt with, and though Rena could not take them on by herself, they would speed up her next promotion if she were to succeed. As Rena looks with unease and asks Slime if he will accept the quest, a blue option window pops up asking him either to accept or decline. A host stands amidst a packed arena and energetically announces to the Heirist tournament to the roaring crowds. He then introduces the first contestant, the Dismantler, Jacob Isaac from the Brass Ring Free Company. As he introduces his opponent, first-time participant Saray Jagan from a household in Janae, No Name steps into the arena. The host then bids the contestants to get ready and begin the fight. The Dismantler lunges forward and jumps into the air, aiming to deliver a mighty blow to No Name's head with his great hammer. Some days before this, Slime explains to No Name that a household from Janae has requested the guild for a mercenary to enter the tournament while bearing their crest in their stead. Having earned their title by accumulating wealth through their leather business and commerce, they were too preoccupied with their trade to train a knight, and instead wished to hire a mercenary to avoid the pressure to participate in the tournament from the event's sponsor. This sponsor is the Lord of Heirist from the Ray family and younger brother of the deceased Lord. No Name will be paid every time he wins until the 8th round, since they don't want to attract any attention and they're hiring a mercenary. No Name accepts the request, and as he and Rena hitch a ride in the back of a wagon, the skeleton concludes that the Lord of Heirist must be Rubia's uncle, responsible for her brother and niece's deaths, and wonders if he should kill him. Without looking at him, Rena once again asks No Name about his relation to Rubia and what kind of person she was. To which he replies that there was nothing between them and he wouldn't even know how to begin to answer that last question, stating that she was probably attractive. Rena then asks if No Name would have given Rubia a different answer to the question she posed in the orphanage. The skeleton bluntly answers that he would have answered the same, since there is something he must do, being acknowledged by a disappointed Rena. The conversation is cut short as they're approaching Heirist. A crowd forms a line to pass the city gates while the pair approaches a stand to enlist No Name in the tournament as a knight for the House of Janae. When the enlister asked for a name, No Name pauses in thought, and as Rena attempts to cover for him in front of the suspicious man, the skeleton presents himself as Saray Jagan. While No Name tells Rena that Saray Jagan is a made-up name, he inwardly recalls that he took it from the disruptor Saray and the savage ox Jagan, two of the 16 demon lords that will descend upon mankind after the 9 Years' War, and that there shouldn't be any problem with borrowing the names. No Name never saw any of the demon lords while in the demon army, being a low-ranking skeleton living a nightmare while controlled by the necromancer until he met Mistress Succubus. Rena pulls him from his thoughts, asking him his real name, stating that before she didn't consider it important since she thought there were no more walking skeletons like him. No Name then states that he doesn't even know what his name is, and Rena offers to come up with a name for him. As she suggests names to the annoyed skeleton, a man announces that the tournament will commence the next day, and they will be fed and lodged in the castle, being able to freely move around the castle grounds between matches. Knowing this was Rubia's home, No Name asks the surprised man for directions to the castle library. Once in the library, the librarian praises No Name's desire to learn as well as fight. The skeleton asks if she has any books by Kevin Ashton, but the librarian doesn't recognize the author and begins to look around. No Name notes the messy state of the place when a book lands by his feet. Looking up, he sees an apparition of Rubia reading atop some stairs, which is cut short when the librarian brings him to the novel Crevice of Time by Kevin Ashton. The librarian then picks up the fallen book, lamenting that the person who read it is no longer there, causing No Name to inquire about it. Visibly scared at having said too much, the woman excuses herself and quickly departs, leaving No Name alone. He then opens Crevice of Time and reads it quickly until Rena finds him, having been assigned a room. A blue window informs him that he has increased his wisdom by 10 and can now sense other skeletons, having also earned a bonus of insight. Rina then states that they should go, and once he looks at her, another window pops up stating her name, profession, level, stats, and a likability of 40. No Name swings his sword until a blue window pops up with his stats, noticing that his swordsmanship doesn't get higher than level 5, and wonders about his insight bonus as Rina approaches him, informing him that the tournament will begin soon. Fireworks light up the sky as the Arist tournament begins. The host asks for a round of applause as Lord Ray enters the arena, while Rina and No Name look from afar. As the first round of the preliminaries begin, the pair discusses about whether the tournament's prize is worth the effort of the competitors. And Rina points out that the real prize is the prestige the nobles gain from their knight's success. Knights also benefit since it is their best opportunity to increase renown and raise their worth other than war. This is especially so for oathless knights, who hope to get noticed by the noble houses and taken into their employ. No Name is told to get ready for the next match, and though Rina encourages him, the skeleton plans to avoid getting too much attention. In the arena, the host explains that the round will last until either contestant is incapacitated or steps out of the battle stage. While No Name thinks about the difficulty of throwing his opponent off the stage, Jacob Isaac berates him for his apparent weakness. Wishing to know his true strength, the skeleton uses his insight skill to see his stats. As the fight begins, No Name uses his superior agility to dodge his opponent's attack and break his hammer, much to the latter's shock and disbelief. No Name offers the now disarmed Jacob to surrender, but the warrior lunges at him enraged and attempts to punch him. With no other choice, the skeleton dodges the punch and swiftly knocks his opponent unconscious with the pommel of his sword, causing everyone present to fall silent in shock. Prompted by No Name, the judge proclaims him victor, and the crowd bursts into applause, much to the surprise of No Name and to the delight of Rina. An insight window shows the stats of level 17 fighter Colin Harrod as he thrusts at No Name with a spear. He dodges the attack and knocks his opponent down. Later, the window displays the stats of a level 29 warrior Jang Philip, who attempts to strike No Name with his chains only for him to catch them with his sword and pull the warrior towards him and incapacitate him, causing the crowd to cheer again. Later, the skeleton praises the convenience of the insight skill for allowing him to gauge his opponent's strength and act accordingly, and wonders who Kevin Ashton might be. He snaps out of his thoughts as he notices Rina holding off 3 men who wish to see him. They introduce themselves as representatives of a merchant group, a fiefdom, and a noble family, and ask that No Name work for them as their guard, each competing to offer him a better payment. He refuses their offers regardless of his salary, and after some thought states that he will not abandon the house of Janae, much to Rina's surprise. As the men ask No Name to reconsider, a drunken swordsman yells at them to quiet down so he can sleep, and stating he is a participant of the tourney. He asks the guards to take care of them and escort them away. Rina then tells a shocked No Name that the drunk is his next opponent, causing No Name to wonder inwardly on how a drunkard got into the quarterfinals, activating insight to check his stats. He is shocked as the insight window is completely blank, and is even more puzzled when he tries again and gets the same result. In the arena, the host introduces No Name as Saray Jagan, and his opponent as Tebold Reynolds, noting his incredible speed. Tebold asks the host for the restroom but is denied since the fight is about to begin, while No Name wonders why insight doesn't work on this man. As the fight begins, the skeleton decides to forego insight and lunges at Tebold, prepared to strike. Needing to pee, Tebold laments the situation before swiftly dodging the attack and appearing behind No Name, promising to end the fight quickly and mentioning Imperial Fencing First Chapter, before attacking the confused skeleton. No Name barely manages to block the attack and is complimented by Tebold. As the swordsman unleashes another attack, the skeleton then grimly realizes why insight doesn't work on him. Tebold has a far higher level than himself. The pair continue to duel as No Name blocks the incoming attacks, much to Tebold's delight. The swordsman then parries the skeleton's sword and lunges at the gap in his armor, noting his lack of combat experience, but is surprised as No Name closes the gap in time and somersaults to a safer position. Tebold notes that it didn't feel as if his strike had succeeded. No Name thinks on how he was saved due to the blade passing through his ribs, which would have been fatal for a human. Wondering who Tebold might be, he asks him about the Imperial fencing, to which the swordsman replies that he used to be an Imperial Knight. He then proceeds to taunt No Name, stating that he isn't skilled enough to become an Imperial Knight himself, and then presses his attack, challenging No Name to strike. While blocking his attacks, No Name thinks Tebold must be weaker than Vatien. And since he might have to face strong Imperial soldiers in the future, he can't lose to a retired knight. As the swordsman presses yet another attack, the skeleton sees an opening. Tybalt's technique is based on lunging, which at one point exposes him to side attacks. Seizing the opportunity, No Name hacks at Tybalt from the side and manages to cut him in the arm before he dodges the strike, causing the crowd to gasp in awe. Wounded but alive, the swordsman stands to attention and decides to face his opponent as a proper Imperial Knight. As Rena wonders who Tybalt might be, an oathless knight informs her that he is an Imperial Knight due to his sword technique, and is surprised that No Name hadn't lost yet. Apologizing for fighting him drunk, Tybalt states that there is a special requirement to becoming an Imperial Knight other than battle instincts, but he will only reveal it to No Name if he manages to defeat him. He then blocks the skeleton's attack, commenting he is better at blocking, before driving his sword to the ground. The swordsman then launches an attack with a curved path that surprises No Name, and sends him flying backwards, then promising to end the fight with a swift strike. No Name raises his sword, but the curved attack pierces his neck and sends him falling to the ground. As Tybalt approaches the host to claim victory, he is startled to see a panting No Name rising and resuming the fight, causing him to wonder if he's a monster. The skeleton then states that he doesn't plan to become an Imperial Knight, but he is after Marquis Vatien, and can't be defeated by an Imperial sword art that easily before he faces him again. Tybalt is furious at hearing that name and asks No Name if he thinks Vatien is so amazing, before he attacks in rage. As he delivers blow after blow on No Name's armor, he states if Vatien didn't exist, he wouldn't have failed to become an Imperial Knight, and his father wouldn't have become so disappointed in him. Tybalt then unleashes a second form attack, which cracks No Name's breastplate, asking him what is so important about a title, while No Name thinks that at this rate, he will lose the fight. Suddenly, Tybalt drops his sword and forfeits the match, with No Name being proclaimed victor. Tybalt gloomily tells the skeleton that the special requirement is blade skills, and the lack thereof is what prevented him from becoming a knight before departing the arena without his sword. That night, the semi-finalists are given a banquet, though neither No Name nor the Oathless Knight remove their helmets or touch the food. The skeleton checks the stats of the three remaining contenders, noticing that Tybalt was the strongest in the whole tournament, and that without blade skills, his armor is useless. Lord Ray sits at the head of the table surrounded by 4 bodyguards and congratulates the participants, telling them to enjoy the evening. Noticing the snake tattoos on the guards' necks, No Name recognizes them as Necron Society members, and the insight window reveals that they are of the same level or stronger than Tybalt. Lord Ray praises No Name for his skill, offering him the opportunity to serve under him and be able to display his true worth, much to the surprise of the other semi-finalists. He states that he believes that seats are filled by those deserving them, and talentless people taking up space frustrates him. Despite wanting to kill the Lord right there for what he did to Rubia and her father, he refrains from doing so, knowing that the guards would kill him. Annoyed by his silence, Lord Ray gives No Name time to consider his offer, stating that he might regret not answering now since he has no interest in losers. He then asks No Name if he wouldn't take off his helmet, and despite being displeased at the refusal, decides to overlook it given his skill, nodding to the Oathless Knight and referring to him as Creston the Hellraiser. No Name recognizes him as his next opponent and wonders about his name. Lord Ray then expresses his excitement about their upcoming fight, stating that he will see their faces regardless of who wins. He then snaps his fingers and beckons 6 scantily clad women to enter the room and entertain his guests. Though the other 2 semi-finalists enjoy themselves, Creston rises violently and leaves the room, and No Name follows suit. Outside, the Oathless Knight confronts the skeleton, wondering why he left and stating that he never heard of an Imperial Knightage in Janae. He doesn't believe that the House of Janae hired knights in these peaceful times and thinks that No Name bribed his way in. As the skeleton points out that he knows quite a lot about knights, the Hellraiser asks if he is trying to be appointed as a knight in Arist after inflating his worth. Annoyed, No Name asks Creston why he always wears a helmet, causing him to draw his sword and asking what he knows about him. To which No Name replies he knows nothing. Sheathing his sword, the Hellraiser promises to crush No Name's insolent attitude and helmet the next day. Rena approaches a man making bets on the upcoming semi-finals, betting a bag of gold on No Name. She's surprised to find the skeleton behind her, and despite the latter's initial reluctance, she encourages him to win the fight. As the announcer presents Saray Jagan and Creston the Hellraiser to the crowd, No Name analyzes his strategy, facing his opponent's sword, while Creston warns him that if he holds back in the fight, he will die. As the fight begins, Creston darts to deliver a decisive blow with his greatsword. No Name dodges the strike and lands a blow on the Hellraiser's armor, planning to use his superior agility to win, before having to dodge a second strike. Creston states his resilience and proceeds to strike the arena, causing a cloud of dust to rise. Using this distraction, he sneaks behind No Name and delivers a blow with all of his might, which the skeleton barely manages to deflect. Commending his opponent's ability to dodge, the Oathless Knight states that his fall will be a matter of time. Knowing dodging won't work, No Name then decides to try something reckless and lunges towards Creston. He delivers 2 blows at close quarters in quick succession, which shatter the knight's armor and sends his helmet flying. The crowd and the skeleton stare in shock as the knight is revealed to be a woman. The crowd stands in shock and Lord Ray beckons his men as No Name and Creston face each other in the arena. Enraged, the female warrior yells at the skeleton, but one of Lord Ray's bodyguards demands that she gives her real name to be recognized as a proper contestant. Once she states her name as Christina Brewer, the soldier, pointing out that women can't compete in the tournament, dismisses her. The woman then demands a chance to fight, and despite the soldier denying it, Lord Ray allows it as long as her opponent has no objections. With No Name's consent, the fight resumes. Lord Ray muses to himself on how amusing the fight will be if accompanied by a woman's screams, and the crowd roars in outrage at Christina's deception, and also the money they'll lose for betting on her. Exhausted, she tells No Name to stop holding back and asks if it's due to her being a woman. Recalling past trauma, she desperately lunges at her opponent before tripping on the arena and falling to the ground, causing the crowd to roar in anger and throw rocks at her, much to Rena's disgust. While on the ground, Christina recalls the merciless training her father gave her, wherein he threatened her to end their relation if she fails to make the family better, and he raged at the fact that she was a woman, much to her suffering. Noting the crowd's mockery, No Name suggests that she hold back to avoid getting badly injured, but before he can finish the sentence, he is sent flying by a devastating strike, much to everyone's surprise. Christina is exhaling steam. Her eyes glow red as she stands on guard. A blue window pops up, informing No Name that she has activated the Berserk skill, turning into a berserker with far higher stats. Christina screams in rage as she delivers another powerful blow that shatters the arena, which No Name manages to evade while wondering the reason for all this transformation. Seeing her berserker mode and the odds turning in her favor, the crowd's mood changes as they begin to cheer for Christina. As No Name thinks about her new strength and speed, the warrior darts at him and sends him flying across the arena, much to the crowd's rejoice, Lord Ray's interest, and Rena's concern. Contemplating how the situation has changed despite her being a lower level than himself, No Name decides to act quickly. He uses his superior speed ability to knock her back and begins circling around her. The Berserker counters this move by furiously swinging her sword in a wide circle, but it's in vain as the skeleton managed to jump clear and deliver a blow that slashes her back. This is not enough, however, as Christina roars and remains standing. And while he wonders about what kind of monster she has become, a blue window informs him that his speed ability has run out and must be recharged. He then notices that the Berserk ability drains her energy over time, and seeing this as an opportunity, he prepares to strike. He stops dead in his tracks as he sees Christina in tears as she asks for a chance to continue fighting, which reminds him of his first death. With Rena urging him to finish the fight, the skeleton then approaches the Berserker, blade in hand. A flash is heard as everyone stares in shock. Christina stands visibly surprised as the host announces her victory over her opponent, who is laying on the arena. Rena